Christians who made a difference.
Back in the 1960s, there were predictions of unprecedented starvation levels in Mexico, India, China, Africa and Pakistan. Hundreds of millions were expected to die. One man changed all that, but his name is virtually unknown. He has been called the man who saved 1 billion lives. His name is Norman Borlaug. Norman Borlaug was an American agricultural scientist who invented high-yield, drought-resistant and disease-resistant crops that broke the starvation cycle and instigated the Green Revolution in the 1960s and 1970s. How did he do this? He did it by crossbreeding wheat strains and introducing new crop management and fertilization techniques. Before Norman Borlaug, many countries like China, India and Pakistan had famines every single year. Now those countries export food because of the crops Borlaug developed. He is one of only 6 people to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, America's Congressional Gold Medal and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Norman Borlaug was born in 1914 and raised in the small town of Saudi in Iowa in USA. He was brought up as a Christian and his family were members of the local Lutheran church. As a youth, he worked on the farm. Under his grandfather's influence, he decided to try for higher education. He received his Bachelor of Science in Biology in 1937 and his PhD in Plant Pathology and Genetics from the University of Minnesota in 1942 at 28 years of age. Borlaug contributed to America's war effort. During the war, he worked for a couple of years with the DuPont Company and developed a saltwater-resistant glue to help with deliveries of supplies to troops stranded on beaches. He also assisted with research for other products for the war effort. In 1944, he took up an agricultural research position in Mexico. When he arrived there, he was almost in despair at the terrible situation. The soils were depleted and the crops disease-ridden. Yields were so low that Mexican farmers could hardly feed their own families, much less a hungry nation. During his 16 years with the Mexican Hunger Project, he succeeded in breeding high-yield, disease-resistant, structurally strong, semi-dwarf wheat varieties. By the early 1960s, Mexican wheat output had increased to 6 times the level of the early 1940s. India and Pakistan sought Norman Borlaug's help, and both these countries saw exponential increases in their wheat harvests, enabling both nations to avoid famine. Prior to 1966, India was an importer of millions of tons of wheat. With Borlaug's help, in under 5 years, India's wheat production doubled and it became a self-sufficient wheat-producing country, with an excess being exported. Borlaug then turned his attention to the Philippines to work on rice, the staple crop for half the world's population. Using the same breeding techniques, Borlaug developed new varieties of rice that produced yields several times the yield of traditional types of rice. His seeds started a rice revolution for China and Asia. Borlaug and his colleagues also revolutionized corn yields with his techniques. His aim was a hunger-free world, and he achieved it. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970. He died in 2009 at the age of 95. Borlaug was a practicing Christian and a lifelong member of an evangelical Lutheran church. His faith was the driving force for all his scientific efforts. When he received the Nobel Peace Prize, he quoted from the book of Isaiah in the Bible as his motivation for what he had done. He was like a Joseph in the Bible account, providing grain to avert famine. Norman Borlaug was a truly great man, and we salute him as a Christian who made a difference.
Christians who made